Dark Souls 3 is done. Dark Souls 2 is done. Now, only one Dark Souls remains. Besides the DLCs, that'll happen eventually. We're playing Dark Souls Remastered. I was thinking to myself, how can I make this more interesting and manage to milk 2 videos out of this? Because I can't make just one video about my first Dark Souls playthrough. No. Too high quality for this channel. So I had the grand idea. How about I just play 10 hours of Dark Souls in one day and make a video about that? And then the next video can be about the full game. Wow, genius. 10 hours isn't a crazy amount. I've heard of people who play World of Warcraft for like 24 hours straight. So this can't be that hard. It was May 24th, like 2ish p.m. when I first started this. I was feeling really good at the start. Quick disclaimer, I did not play this all in one sitting. I took 2 breaks throughout, which is still pretty good, but it was still done within 24 hours. Now, it's been a minute since I've played a Souls game. I've been playing games more like Elden Ring and Devil May Cry, but I was pretty excited to start this run. So as per usual, it's just a normal character creation. And I'm not creative, so I hit the random button a billion times, and now you can say hello to our character, Gimbus. In Dark Souls 3, I went Bandit, and in Dark Souls 2, I went whatever class has a scimitar. So this time, I start this journey as a mere knight. Cue the loud opening sequence, and a kind man drops us the key, and the journey as an undead can start. Now, this is hour 0, or the first hour, so not a crazy amount happens, because, well, it's the start of the game. But there's the opening boss, the Asylum Demon. I pick at him with my broken sword until inevitably giving into the despair like all the other Souls players, and embrace the sun. I let him kill me. Trying again, and I gain my starting loot this time, and mourn the sad existence of my savior while he gives me his beloved Estus Flask. Why must these games be so sad? Anyways, Asylum Demon is no issue when you have an actual weapon, and after a quick little joyride, I find myself at the Firelink Shrine with a kind gentleman hanging out. There's a few NPCs around, but nothing I found crazy notable. Now, for the rest of this hour, I spend all my time doing very productive things like dying over and over again, fighting skeletons I'm not supposed to. This leads to the catacombs, which I thought was the proper way at first, but then eventually I was like, wow, these enemies are way too strong for me. Eventually, at the end of the first hour, I make my way into Undeadburg, and that's where I will continue. As for the second hour, we start in Undeadburg, as I just said. Doesn't have much for me as of right now. It's a pretty straightforward area, but I decided to switch up my weapon already from the straight sword here. I went with a basic mace because it did decent damage and seemed pretty good for a single target. I would later find out this weapon is dick and balls, but I will deal with that later. After some more running around, throwing bombs at a pig, and finding a dramatic familiar bridge, I've seen this before, the Taurus Demon. Now, there's a very well-known cheese for this boss fight, where you make the demon jump off of the bridge, which is very tempting, but I think for this run, I'll pass, because I don't go out of my way to cheese boss. Oh, well, there he goes. Well, that's our first boss fight, and, what a great first boss. I didn't try to do that. I was just pressuring him, and he decided life wasn't worth living. Must have been a Bloodborne fan. Undeadburg leads to, well, the Undead Parish, and this area actually has some things of interest, like Solaire, praise the sun, and some other awesome NPCs, like Andre the Blacksmith and Siegmeyer of Katarina. This game has some crazy good NPCs. Most of them are memorable, and Solaire makes me a very, very happy man. Anyways, in this area, I cheese my way past this big dragon that lights a bridge on fire, of course. Discover that I cheesed it by accidentally backtracking and finding the proper way, and well, that's the end of hour 2. Hour 3, well, continuing through the area, I get lost for a while, which is pretty normal for me. One thing you'll find out is I'm incredibly navigationally challenged, and also the complete opposite of observant, so I spent a lot of time aimlessly running to get used to it. Sometimes, though, I take a couple wrong turns and get overwhelmed by enemies, and that's where our story picks up. Simply trying to get away from the enemies leads me to the Belfry Gargoyles fight. At first, this was rough. It was a challenge, and I was thinking it was just a skill issue, but then I had a realization. No. This can't be my fault. It has to be the weapon's fault. So I switched to a claymore, which not only helped a lot with the run back, but in the fight in general. Still took a few tries, though, but it was indeed the weapon's fault. I'm pretty bad at multiple enemy boss fights. Put just one big enemy in front of me, I'm great. Please, not 2. Oh, it doesn't matter. I stole one of their tails with the claymore that I just switched to, and that was the run. I did it. It was pretty simple. It was actually the weapon's fault. I wasn't wrong. The claymore is also a pretty solid weapon. Maybe almost too good for now, but we'll figure that out later. It was a good fight, and I get to ring a bell, which is awesome. Thinking back to the guy in the opening, there's a bell up high and a one down low, so I guess it's time to go down. Hour 4. Now, I don't exactly know where to go. All I know is down, so I end up wandering down to the area below Andre and found myself face to face with a rock demon guy who I respectfully decided to walk past for now, and I end up in the Dark Root Garden. The only enemies I'm finding down here are statues and Ents, or in layman's terms, Big Rock and Big Bush. I got gotta wrap up talking about this area though, so let's look at the boss fight I found. If you can really call the Moonlight Butterfly a boss fight. It's very simple, but a little time consuming. As long as you're not stupid, you shouldn't. I said, as long as you're not stupid, you shouldn't die. Anyways, the rest of this hour takes place way back in Undeadburg, where I find my way into the lower part of the town with some devil dogs and assassins. The Claymore makes this pretty simple to deal with, but at the end of this road is a notorious mini-boss, the Capra Demon, which is notorious for how goddamn tedious this is. Medium demon, small dogs, small arena. Awesome! He doesn't have much health though, and once you deal with the dog, it's not terrible. My weapon of choice was actually great here. The Claymore was a huge switch. It was still a bit of a time sink. It took a good couple attempts, and the run back was a little bit time consuming. Not exactly what I would call enjoyable, but it was satisfying, and this is Dark Souls. It's been about 3 hours of playing Dark Souls in one sitting at this point. I'm feeling pretty okay. Usually this is where I, take a break when I'm recording for videos or just playing games in general, but I need to get more out of this game done, so I press onwards and waste the rest of this hour looking for how to get into the depth. I didn't say these 10 hours were gonna be efficient. Oh yeah, and I decided to hang up the Claymore in exchange for the Dark Knight Sword because it felt like pretty much the same thing, did more damage, and looked really cool. Anyways, breaking into our 4th hour, and rats. There's so many rats. This hour was in the depths with all the delightful little creatures that scurry around down there. I wander into a fog wall I found in the sewers, and you know what? It's another boss fight. What the fuck is that? That's the Gaping Dragon. Looks scary, but this isn't actually that bad at all. Maybe because this weapon feels a bit overpowered, but honestly, most weapons feel incredibly strong in this game. Ooh la la, I get to take his tail as well. Yeah, this is one of my favorite gimmicks in this game, actually, is taking the tails of the dragon bosses or the bosses with tails in general. I think it's super cool, even though I'm not gonna use the weapons. But yeah, I first shot that fight and get to move on through the sewers again to an amazing area known as Blight Town. This is where my positive mindset starts to take a bit of a dive, just like all other Souls players, because all the complaints I've heard are very true. This is for sure where the Dark Ladder area in Dark Souls 2 gets its inspiration, because this is terrible. So many enemies, and toxic is a lame effect. There's too many damn ladders, so I'm lost for a good bit. Eventually, I make it to the bottom and find everyone's favorite, a lovely poison swamp, but luckily also a bonfire in a tunnel. After the 5th hour, heading into the 6th hour, I decided to take a little break, a quick 2-hour break, because I just decided I'd stay up later that night. Then I found out this was a huge mistake because my motivation was never so low to play this game. I don't know how some people do this like daily. Playing this much of one game is a lot, but it's time to press on through the poison swamp, and to make matters worse, I went the complete wrong way to start with, so I have to backtrack and find out where this witch Quelaag resides. Oh god, monster girl. She's hot. Get it? She's hot because she's like spewing lava. Anyways, this fight has some interesting challenges because the moveset isn't terrible, but the problem is I didn't have a lot of purple moss clumps, which is what you use in this game to cure your poison from the poison swamp that you have to tread through, of course. So every run back, I was poisoned starting the fight, and suddenly the moves that I'd normally be able to tank, I cannot tank. This was still a skill issue. You get so many Estus flasks in this game, you gotta pace yourself. I just got really greedy, and I kind of just wanted this fight to be over and done with. Just don't get hit, lol. I complained a lot, but I did enjoy the fight, and I did have a good bit of difficulty, which is great to see because none of the bosses have been really that challenging for me so far, and I don't know if that's because I picked up a broken weapon, but that's how it's been. Anyways, I must digress, because to end this hour off, it's just me running through the poison swamp until I start hour 6. So we start hour 6! So this hour is honestly my biggest waste of time in this entire run, because I spent 30 whole minutes doing nothing. I couldn't figure out how to get out of Blight Town. I'm pretty sure this is common for a lot of people, but I couldn't figure out how to get out of here for so long that I randomly stumbled upon the New Londo ruins and died there, and then forgot about the New Londo ruins. Eventually though, I caved and just watched a playthrough, and I'm not ashamed of it. Anyways, say a quick hello to Mr. Handsome in the Firething Shrine, and I made my way towards Sen's Fortress. But I didn't go in just yet because I heard tell of another boss who remains untouched, the Great Wolf Sith. I go back to the Darkroot Garden because I'm in the general area and buy something from Andre that lets me in the door I seen earlier. Few NPC enemies, but nothing crazy in here, and I wander into the boss arena for the big boy. From what I've heard, everyone always feels so bad when they fight this boss because there's a quest line to go with it that makes it really sad, but of course, I didn't do that this time around. That's second playthrough activities. So I take down the beast with a cold heart. Boss fight was too easy, and it didn't really hurt my heart at all. I don't know why everyone's feeling bad. Oh, why is he limping? No, I'm a monster. Well, that was still heartbreaking. Why did they make him so pathetic at the end? Second phases are supposed to make them stronger, not weaker. Fuck you, Dark Souls. This is just mean. That's enough. After putting Sif to rest, I move on to Sen's Fortress, where I can work through the 7th hour. In hour 7, this was the last sprint for me, kind of, and it was sort of 12 a.m. for me at the time, but that's nothing crazy new to me. I knew what I was getting into when I took a break earlier. Morale is low, but the end is near, so I press on into Sen's Fortress, which makes me feel like the biggest idiot alive, because how did I manage to die so many times to these goddamn traps? They're not even hard to dodge. There are just so many of them, and I like to get greedy a lot. And boulders are tasty. I spent a lot of time eating sickles and getting run over by said boulders, but I mean, hey, at least I'm not poisoned. Anyways, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, but of course I made it through after some time, and at the halfway point to hour 8, I run into the Iron Golem boss fight. Very cool looking boss, love me a classic big Iron Man, but this fight usually involves you knocking him down with stagger damage and making him fall. Or at least that's what I think is the intended route. But, something interesting happened in my fight. Shit, I guess we're doing flying golems now. Yeah, he's kinda just levitating there. Menacingly. He came back down eventually, and I just beat on his ankles like a normal big boss, but, that was for sure a memorable fight for me, at least. The rest of this hour was spent in the most memorable area in Dark Souls Remastered, Anor Londo. People who don't even know Souls games know this is the big city with the dreaded Ornstein and Smough fight. And people who do know Souls know this area is a real test of cardio because, wow, it is massive. I love the design of this place, built so massive as if to inhabit thousands of people, but it simply has a few big knights, silver guards, and a bunch of flying goobers and priests. Anyways, since this place is big as hell, I spent the rest of this hour progressing pretty normally. No floating golems this time. Wander around aimlessly for a bit, cross some rafters with enemies on top because every Souls game needs one of those areas, and eventually I find myself facing some big dramatic stairs, and that's where hour 7 ends and hour 8 will pick up. This area has been pretty straightforward so far, so I was just waiting for the extremely tedious part of the run, and boy, did I find it alright. Most of this part isn't that bad, but to get into this big castle-like area, you need to cross the outside of the building. And you know what's best to put on the really thin outskirts of the castle? Of course, silver knights with massive bows. Man, did this suck. This one knight in particular was the biggest nuisance of this entire run, dare I say, because whenever I would try to kill him, I would either get tapped off the edge from, you know, his melee weapons that he also has, and fall to my death, or I would swing my sword, bonk off the wall or his shield, and still fall to my death. This enemy is placed so terribly and so annoyingly. It's so dumb. I never again ever again. I think I'd turn off the game and rather go drag my balls on cement for 3 hours. Now, looking back, there was definitely better ways to go about this, but you gotta remember, I was not thinking. I was filled with nothing but disdain towards this one enemy. I was very tired, and I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls today, so I didn't do anything smart like use a shield to parry the knight. I just kept trying the only way I knew how, and you know what? It worked eventually. Oh, well, look at this. It's Solaire. Cracking a few jokes with Solaire is always a very peaceful moment in this game. This gives me a bit of time for a little mental reset before I continue through this castle. But eventually, I must leave Solaire. Farewell, son brother, and I must move on. Lots of doors with empty rooms and a few enemies and mimics later, and I find another familiar face with Siegmeyer just hanging out here as well, which is great to see. And after all this time, I find a new armor set I like. In these games, I never do my armor based off stats. It's fully preference of looks, and I usually stick to one throughout the entire game. And the Silver Knight set interested me, so I finally got a quick change of wardrobe and kept moving on. Later in the castle, I end up getting a message from an item I picked up earlier. Time for a quick flashback to earlier in the game. I rescued this man from the church in an undead parish and thought nothing of it really. The next time I visited Firelink Shrine, afterwards, it turns out the Firekeeper was murdered. And at the time, I thought, oh well, must be the standard in the story. Until now, I check the item in my inventory and it tells me that I can invade the world of the murderer of the Firekeeper. So, naturally, here we go! And I finally put all the pieces together. The man I rescued was Lotric, who murdered the Firekeeper at Firelink Shrine. Boom! Mind blown. Well, that's neat. Time to kill this guy. NPC fights can be very difficult for me, but this one wasn't so bad because in the hallway, there's pillars you can kite the summons around and play slow to eventually catch the main target. It's like foreshadowing for a fight that's upcoming. That was a fun little unintentional quest line, but now we have a bigger issue at hand. Another dramatic staircase, and at the top, of course, you've guessed it, a fog wall. People and peepettes. It's time for the main event of this video, the Ornstein and Smough fight. This fight was revolutionary to the difficulty in fights in video games, and now I can finally experience it for myself. Love it or hate it, these guys look awesome. I truly think this might be the best 2v1 fight I have experienced up to when I'm posting this video. This was so much fun. Anyways, let's talk about the actual fight now. Believe it or not, this was actually decently tough. Part of the time was my Dark Souls classic boss run in between attempts, but it did take a few attempts. As I said earlier, this is a 2v1 fight with the classic big slow guy and small fast guy. I hate dealing with the small guy second in these kind of fights, so my game plan is kiting Smough around these pillars set in the arena and slowly fighting Ornstein to try and create a one-on-one. Simple, well-known strategy, right? Well, still easier said than done. Ornstein has an incredible amount of gap close, so when trying to place Smough in a decent spot, it's hard to not get caught by his attacks out of nowhere. And Smough has a very well balanced kit, with his massive hammer and big AoEs that provide a good hindrance when fighting Ornstein. And this is all without mentioning Ornstein has a good amount of difficulty to fight one-on-one. Either way, this plan will eventually work. The key to these fights is taking your time. I don't care how long it takes me to beat the boss as long as I win. So after a while of whittling down Ornstein, the agile nuisance finally falls. And Smough somehow gains a power boost through executing his comrade. I suppose he is the executioner, but if anyone knows why he does this, please let me know. But that's about all the yapping I wanted to do for this fight, so I'm just gonna go to a little montage of the actual fight. Yes! Oh, that didn't even take that long. Let's fucking go. The final hour. The 9th hour. Well, obviously, this is neither the end of the game or the end of the 10 hours because we still have the last hour, the 9th hour. But everything here isn't quite as important. More like an epilogue of sorts for this video. This hour starts with the meeting of, wow, perhaps no longer maidenless? Big Lady here grants us the Lord's Vessel, which means we can finally teleport. Kind of crazy it takes this long to teleport in this game, but this is amazing. It feels so freeing. First things first, I head back to Firelink Shrine and end up saying hello to Mr. Handsome Snake Man. He congratulates me on my achievement, but something unfortunate happens and I tabbed out on accident. When I tab back in, my left click swings my sword and I fell in his pit. Apparently I was somewhat supposed to do this though, because I can place the Lord's Vessel down here. So I do just that and teleport back up to continue my conversation with a snake, and now he hates me. I don't know what any of this means, but I suppose I'll find out eventually. Anyways, it's vengeance time. I'm looking towards the catacombs. From the start of the game, that bullied me so miserably. And now, with my upgraded equipment and my higher level, this place is a breeze. I clear everything in here with relative ease, figure out a quick puzzle contraption, and continue forth into the dark to inevitably find another boss arena. Who could it be this time? Oh shit, it's just Pinwheel. Well, I'm sure I don't have to say much about this fight, but it was an incredibly underwhelming fight. But that is just how it goes sometimes. They can't all be good bosses. Pinwheel is cleared out, and I decide with my little bit of time remaining to play some optional content. Back in Anne Orlando, I found this massive painting, so I looked up what it does, which leads me back to the present where I am heading back to the asylum where everything started. It's easy to get here if you just embrace Egg, and we get to look around where we started. Oh, classic pitfall. Falling through the floor leads me into the Stray Demon fight, which is, well, pretty well the same as the Asylum Demon, so you can kind of guess how this went. He had some bigger attacks, sure, with some explosions at the end. Wow, so exciting. But it was a quick fight, and I pay a visit to my starting cell to pick up a strange strange doll, which is the item I need for this painting. Heading back to the bonfire to teleport outruns me into a familiar, yet very disappointing face. The elite knight from the beginning remains here, but without his mind. He charges mindlessly, but I put him out of his misery for now. So long, good buddy. I take my leave from the asylum and head back to the painting in Anor Londo. From there, I enter the painting, which lands me in the painted world, and this is where the final hour ends. That's it for this video. Things take me quite a while to create nowadays because I've been relatively busy, but I hope to have a video out on the full game soon enough. The hour count in this video might have been a bit confusing, but this is my first time making one of these kinds of videos, so I did the scripting in kind of a strange way, but I hope it's not too bad. We ended the game with like 10.3 hours, which is pretty good. Anyways, that's all for this video. Subscribe if you're curious to see how the rest of my Dark Souls experience goes, and thanks for watching.